Hi, Tara. I'm so excited for you to be on the Thrive Mamas interviews. These interviews, I get to share some amazing conversations with incredible women. I love the stories that we get to hear. I know you have an amazing story that didn't always sound like it was thriving. And I believe that that's what you're going to share with us today. But what I want our audience is full of women who are all walks of life at different ages and stages of life. They're looking for inspiration, tools, tips, advice, anything that they can get for that motivation and inspiration to adjust their life, better their lives, feel good about their life, whatever's going on in their life. So you call yourself a yogaholic, serial business, and fur mama. And I love that because I think, the whole fur mama, I can resonate with that. Yogaholic, I love too. And just the business entrepreneurial spirit is something so unique. And especially as women that are in that spiritual space, I give you a lot of kudos. So I know you have so much more to share with me. Tell me more about who you are and what led you to this yogaholic and serial business owner lifestyle.
It's a loaded question, but so thank you for having me. I guess I would say I did not start out as a business owner, so I went to college to be an educator. So I started in the field of education, graduated with a degree in special education K to 12, and so that's kind of where I started my adult life, teaching students K to 5 here in Milton, actually Delaware, and I was in that for about 10 years. So I worked in the classroom as a special ed teacher. I worked as a special ed coordinator for several years. I went back for my master's in reading. I ran a volunteer reading program, the host program with kids. So most of my time in the school was working with kind of more of the needy population. And so I did that for about 10 years, and I think about my 8th or 9th year, I kind of started to realize that I wasn't really happy, not necessarily with working with children, but just within the teaching profession itself, a lot of the politics and stressors that you have with that. And kind of within that same time, I became heavily involved with the SPCA, so working with some dogs, and I ended up adopting 2 dogs with my ex-husband, and our second dog was a bit of a problem child. And I did kind of what I normally do. So instead of finding a dog trainer myself, I decided to go to school to become a dog trainer instead. And so I was doing that simultaneously while I was teaching. And it kind of was a good transition because I was becoming very unhappy with my teaching career, and I kind of found this new passion, working with dogs. There was a lot of similarities actually working with children and dogs kind of thing. So I made the decision after 10 years to leave my teaching job and just kind of go out on a whim and start my own dog training business. So I had a lot of experience.
Can I just interrupt you just because I feel like it's so funny because years ago I used to do a training. I had just gotten my bulldog, and the same thing. I was like, you know what? Dogs are like men. If we I should write a book on this. If we just gave them a little bit of attention, they're golden, and they will do anything that you want them to. So they just need a little attention, they need a little praise, and they need some food, and I think they're good. So just sidetrack. Sorry.
It's funny you say that because I had a conversation with another friend sometime in the last few months about just relationships in general, but she had made the same comment. Men are kind of like puppies. You just have to give them what you would give a puppy. So that kind of sounds awful on some levels, but there definitely are a lot of similarities between that. So like I said, I kind of went out on a whim starting the business. Obviously my specialty was teaching reading and writing. Math and numbers are not my thing. So opening up a business on a whim, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to work with dogs and I wanted to work for myself. So that's kind of how things started. And then I began adding photography to it. So then I had the dog training and the pet photography. And then a few years later, I got an offer to purchase a local pet sitting company that was already in business. And so my ex-husband and I kind of discussed this and went out on a whim again and purchased the pet sitting business. So that's kind of how I ended up with Get Your Wag on Pet Services, which was dog training, pet sitting, and pet photography. And I had started it working just me, myself, and I. When I took over the pet sitting, I had a few independent contractors, and within a couple of years, it grew. So up until this pandemic, I've typically had on average like 10 to 14 pet sitters working for me, and kind of grew that business. So I was doing all of that, and I would probably venture to say that during that time, I kind of became a little bit of a workaholic, and was one of those I need to stay busy to avoid all the other stuff going on in my life kind of thing. So my business was kind of booming and thriving and doing all of that. And on the sidelines, there was a lot of family things going on, a lot of things in my marriage as well that I was trying to avoid. And so I kind of got to a point, probably around age 40. I just turned 43. So it was something about that 40 number that was a bit of an aha moment. Like, okay, things are not working out at home, in my family's home, and I need to do something about it. So I kind of realized around the age of 40 that I had a lot of trauma, you could say, to address from childhood and even into adulthood. And that would be when I kind of dove headfirst into my yoga journey. I've always been really into fitness. I've done triathlons, running, CrossFit, you name it. I dabbled with yoga for probably 12 years and just couldn't wrap my head around it, and something at 40 just clicked, and that was my thing. So 40 was kind of my year to dive into yoga and self-help. Started working with a local therapist, was practicing yoga 6-7 days a week, and that's kind of when I got my first yoga certification, which is the Buti yoga. So that was the first certification I got. Then I had signed up for my 200 hours, my primal flow, and that's where I've kind of gotten all of the yoga certifications and instructions. And within that whole time, my marriage did officially fall apart as of last July. And at the end of the day, the yoga has been a blessing, because I think, and I know you and I have discussed this before, I think my journey into yoga was on purpose to
Totally.
100% prepare me for everything that was about to happen.
Yeah.
So
And even as you know, I've been a healer or in the healing arts for 20 something, 7 years. I kind of try to like slide that through, because I'm in disbelief that I'm that old. But but for me, I was drawn into the healing arts because I was wounded. So when I look at other individuals on their healing path, I see that you started one because you wanted to be a nurturer. So you were in the education program. And so then something didn't, resonate there enough. Like it was great, it was good, and then it wasn't enough. So then you went into the animals. And I even myself as a Reiki practitioner, I started working with the animals and offering healing, Reiki healing just to animals because it was safe. They responded tremendously, but they didn't talk back. They don't give you their judgment. So I felt that it was a very safe space, and I see that in a parallel with you with the animals. Like it just felt really safe because they're, I believe, God's angels on earth, and the animals are also wounded, but they show a reflection with what's going on in our beings. And so in order to help heal them, we need to heal ourselves. And so then you got to that crossroads of, okay, I need the next level of healing. Now what? So now it's yoga. Now it's yoga therapy. And you're on this path, and you have advice that you had shared with me that you would honor your personal boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you would suggest for others. If you were to say, you know what, I have advice for myself as a younger person. Tell me a little bit more about when you say honoring your personal boundaries. What does that mean to you?
Gosh, that's a huge one, and that is it's definitely something that I am consistently working on currently as well. So it's not by any means anything that I have mastered,
Mhm.
um, but I have definitely in the realm of my family kind of always been the helper. You know, it's kind of been my role that I've taken on to kind of help everyone else when they are going through their own struggles. And I have a tendency to do it with my friends as well. So I've always kind of had a tendency to put myself and my own needs on the back burner, and you know, be that busy workaholic, and I'm gonna kind of bail out other people when they need it, so to speak. And I think, like I said, when I hit that 40-year-old mark, it was kind of like, whoa, you haven't really taken care of yourself a whole lot, and you've been putting all this stuff that you need to deal with on your own to the side. So for me, the boundaries that I've been working on the last few years have been just that, you know, kind of trying to determine how to create a safe and healthy way to still love and care for somebody else. You know, whether it's a friend or a family member when they are in need, but not necessarily always being the one to jump in and save the day. Um,
Mm.
so I guess that might be a good way to put it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's so interesting because that's one of the reasons why I started the Magnificent Mama group, was because I saw that not only was I just that person too, that all these other women that kept coming into my life, they were completely depleted of love and self-care and kindness, and they were givers. They were absolutely the biggest givers I've ever met in my life, but they
Mm-hmm.
did nothing for themselves, and they were filling up everybody else's cup. And then when it came down to them, they were completely empty, resentful, angry, sad, lonely. And oftentimes I would say, I could pour as much love into you. I have a huge pitcher of love and I'm going to pour it into you, but I would see it seep out of your being, almost
Mm-hmm.
as though there were holes within your being. So all the love that I was pouring into you couldn't stay in because you didn't love yourself. And I often say, if we don't love ourselves, how do you expect me to love you? And you'll only love yourself as much as you love yourself. So if you only love yourself up to your hips, that's as much love as you'll accept. And everything else will spill out. So I love that you're seeing this. And you know what? Again, better now at 43 than at 70 or 80, because I work with people who are in their 70s and they're like, Elizabeth, why didn't I see this when I was, you know, in my 20s, 30s, 40s? Why didn't anybody tell me this? And I'm
Yeah.
sad for them, but I say at least you know it now. So
Yeah.
I give you so much credit for that.
Thank you. And I was thinking as we were discussing it, and what you mentioned earlier about the animals, you know, I feel like that was definitely um, for me, getting into animal rescue in my mind was kind of a healing process, and that's what I did for. I was probably in the animal rescue world big time for about 10 to 12 years. You know, and I spent a lot of time volunteering my time, helping out the rescues, and that was damaging to my marriage too, you know, because I was spending so much time doing all this stuff for other people and
Mhm.
animals that I wasn't doing anything at home or for myself. But yeah, I mean, even whether it's with animals or people, and you put all your energy thinking, I think in my head I was in some way thinking, if I can help these animals and do all these things for other people, it's just going to kind of automatically heal me. But that's not really the case. You have to really specifically do it, and I don't think you can do it until it hits you on your own. I mean, people can tell you till you're blue in the face, but it's not until you just kind of have that vision one day, like, oh,
Right,
what
right.
the heck have I been doing for?
There's a saying that my father used to say, and still says, I'm sure, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. So no matter how many teachers show up into your life, and those dogs may have been your teacher, and they were suiting you for that time, although it was taking you away from your personal life and healing and working towards that. But that everything is in divine order. And so, although unfortunately that may not have worked out, but maybe that wouldn't have worked out even if you poured enough into it. So who knows? It's hearsay. But where you are right now, you're working on yourself. And obviously it's not too late. It's 43, right? So what does 43 look like? What would you give advice to others to say, how this has helped me, and what ways do you feel free from this advice that you have helped yourself with?
Um, I think, sticking with that whole idea of the boundaries and, age is just a number, and that's something that I'm kind of trying to remind myself of, because I have days where I'm definitely going into a little bit of a panic mode. I mean, I'm 43. I am officially divorced now. I'm about to move. It will be the first time in my life that I own my own house, have to pay my own mortgage, do all of these things. And I'm also in the midst of hopefully creating a new career path for myself. So I am having some moments of insecurities and uncertainties. But I'm trying to stay focused and grounded. By keeping myself connected, like with people like yourself. I just signed up for Melissa Wolf, who has her Balanced Wellness. So she has started a 90-day coaching program. So it's Vision to Accelerate. And so it's the first time I've ever actually done a coaching program. And so I've signed up for that, and that is keeping me on track. So it gives me a support system. It gives me accountability. We're creating specific goals and ascension plans, to have completed by this 90-day period. So I think for me, staying focused and finding people that understand what you're going through, and a support system and a coaching program or a therapy program, whatever it might be, to kind of keep you on track and stay grounded on a daily basis.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is don't do this on your own. Never be alone. Like, there are so many people that are struggling and they're by themselves. And I think that's this main point for me to do these Thrive interviews, because I want women to see that they never have to walk this path alone, and that we all go through struggles. And some struggles look like how they looked when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. It doesn't even matter. That no matter who it is, you don't ever have to be alone. And we can hold each other in silence and love and support. And as long as we're working on our inner self, we will hold you up. But the minute you say, I can't and I won't, is when you see yourself floating away. And then that's sad. And that is unnecessary, in my opinion. But that's where, whether people needed the one-on-one attention or in this connective tribe, the Thrive is what it's all about, because we need that sisterhood to say, you know what, girl, you've got this, and we are cheering you on. And we're going to give you the tools, and here's a tool, and it might work for you today. Amazing. However, tomorrow, you're going to try that tool, and that tool didn't work for you. That doesn't mean give up. It means find your tribe, find another tool, and go forward.
Yeah.
You can have a pity party, maybe for a minute, right?
Yeah. And I think another big piece of it too is, sharing and owning your story. And I can sometimes tend to be an oversharer, which is not always the best thing either. However, I have found, as I've started to go through this process, that I can kind of easily reach out to people and share what's going on with me, and then sometimes I feel a little nervous about the response. But what I found that has happened over the last year is that every person that I've kind of reached out to on a whim to share or talk has responded with something either that's the same or similar, or, so as opposed to feeling shameful about what you've been through, just kind of being able to own it and share it, because there's going to be 10 people for your story that have had the same thing happen. And that has been a huge way that I have found a lot of additional support over the last year, just kind of taking the chance to kind of share what's going on and talk it out. So
I love you that you brought that up, because one of as a holistic life coach and Reiki master, the first step is heal thyself. So I have always been very sensitive to, I'm an empath, so I've always been sensitive to getting touched by somebody else on a therapeutic level, or be supported by somebody else. And as long as I can see that they are working towards healing themselves, I can surround myself or be with them. If I feel that they are just giving, and not doing and doing the work themselves, that's when I feel that block and there's a lot of pain there. So the movement, and that's why I love what that you do with the yoga and then soon to be the yoga therapy, that you're moving the body because you're moving that pain out of the body, but you're recognizing it. You're recognizing it within your body, but you're saying, oh, here it is. I was abused as a child. There was a lot of unhealthy relationships, sexual, physical, and emotional. And so when I started as a massage therapist in my early practice as a 21-year-old, it made me realize I could work on all these people and help them, but I was hearing their stories, and I couldn't hold it all. It was almost like I was holding the world in my hands, and that didn't serve me and it didn't serve them. So that's when I started to work on myself, but I would also share whatever I learned. I was sharing, learning it and sharing it. So when you say, oh, I overshare, it actually allowed those people to see a reflection. Oh, it's not just me. I'm not just alone in this horrible, dark place. I can share with others, but we're growing together. We're lifting one another up. We're not just going to stay in this muck. That's the difference. And that's the difference when we look for that tribe of people who are saying, I am not going to sit in this muck because it smells. Let's lift. Let's keep encouraging each other to grow and evolve and expand. And that's where the light is. And I see that in you, and I've always seen that in you. So I'm so proud of you for sharing that and going in this direction, because boundaries is heal or heal thyself, and keeping the boundaries, because as you're healing, you don't want anyone pulling you down, right? You're like, nope, protection mode. And I know you had said to me once that you got to protect yourself from even who you hang out with. So if you go, oh, radar, right? Tell me about that, like the circles of people that you've hung out with and how they have served you or not.
Yeah. And that's kind of something I struggle with even still. I mean, I come from, obviously I was a teacher, but I also did bartend part-time. So I have been in the service industry for, gosh, probably almost 20. I think I started in the service industry when I was 19. So it's been over 20 years. And, the service/restaurant industry is a thing. It's a lifestyle. And so I feel like I've kind of always led like this double life. I was this school teacher during the day, bartender at night. And so the bar scene just kind of brought a different group of people. And not that I'm not saying anyone's a bad person per se. It just is a different lifestyle. And I was very much into it. I mean, I definitely was a big partier for a while. And so as I've kind of gone through this transition over the last several years, I've had to kind of just pull myself away from that. I don't necessarily want to say pull myself away from people specifically, but just that scene in general, and, put my focus more into the yoga and my self-care and my healthier and more mindful eating and drinking habits and all of those good things. So, and I just had a conversation, Melissa and I had our one-on-one coaching call yesterday, and we had that very same discussion as far as really trying to focus on who we're surrounding ourselves with right now, as we're both kind of going through some things. So who you surround yourself with makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
As far as influences.
So toxic food, toxic drinks, toxic people, while you're trying to heal. It's like one's pulling you down, one you're trying to elevate. And so if you're trying to do both, you can't possibly accomplish and achieve either one of them. So you pretty much stalemate, and the dark still takes over. So I love that you're bringing that up, because there are so many people who are like, I'm trying to heal, I'm trying to change my life, I'm trying to get healthier relationships. However, I'm afraid to let the ones that I have go. and I'm afraid to leave the job that I can't stand because it's an income, and the spouse that I'm with is safe, but there's no intimacy. And not that I'm saying, scrap it all and change it right away all at one time, but one change at a time. And maybe even just noticing the food that you put into your body, the thoughts that you think, the people that you surround yourself with and have conversations with. Do they feel like, do they lift you up? And if the answer is no, then yeah, I encourage them to just not pay attention to that, or set that aside for now. Just, I always say, park it until you feel vibed up enough to be able to then go back into that environment and then see where you are. But until then, you're right, you need to keep that boundary. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I think that kind of plays into, I think something you mentioned earlier about, healing through movement and body work. And that's kind of one of the reasons I've delved into the yoga therapy program. And I think over the last couple years, some of the things that I've been really self-reflective on are, I would say my biggest survival skill has been disassociation, right? So, growing up as a child when things were going on, or even into adulthood when things were going on in different toxic relationships, I would find myself doing this disassociation thing where I would literally almost like go out of my body, like I wasn't there. It was kind of like just a zone out. And so what I started to kind of recognize over the last several years is physically what was happening in my body during situations, and then after situations or after interactions with people, I would notice what was happening in my body, whether it was a heavy feeling or feeling drained or, all the above. And so through the Buti yoga, really, a lot, and even primal flow, because they're different energetic practices, and then learning what I've learned so far in the yoga therapy, there's so much that can come out of taking note of what's happening in your physical body, not just your mind. You can feel angry or upset or sad, and you can talk to a therapist about it all day long, which is great and lovely. I see a therapist myself still, but it's not the same as really, going inward and taking note of each cell in your body and what is happening, and how, as you move through different movements and breath work, how you can physically alter everything.
So how, if somebody were to say to you, Tara, it sounds like it's helping you to ground and stay connected to your body, and I call that grounding or rooting into that first chakra. When you start to feel yourself disassociate and you're starting to like think, okay, how many things that I needed to do, my to-do list, blah, 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 or who am I going to call, or what can I drink, or what can I eat, to just disassociate and take away, instead of those thoughts that take you further from your goals and desires, how do you feel yourself being more in alignment to grounding back into your body?
I would say it's the ability to, number one, actually just recognize that, because I think, in the beginning I wasn't. So I think that's a big piece of it, being able to actually recognize it and reflect on it, and then, just being able to mentally pull yourself out and know that you have, like, going back to the tools, right? You have a couple tools. Okay, so what can I do instead of doing this? I can go do a quick yoga flow. I can go pick up a mindfulness or meditative podcast off Spotify real quick. I can go do a card pool real fast. I can go walk my dogs, kind of knowing that you just have like 5 to 10 tools that you can pull from. So when you're in that headspace, you have some options. And then it also has to do with who you're around. I mean, I had a really rough morning the other day, and my roommate is a fellow yogi, and I was having a rough moment in my yoga room and wasn't really planning to move, and she came in and said, hey, why don't you do this handstand class with me, even if it's for 30 minutes? And I almost said no, but I didn't. I went out, I did the handstand class, and 30 minutes later I felt like a completely different person. So I think it's a combination of being able to have the tools yourself, but also to have people that you can turn to help you when maybe you can't make the best decision for yourself.
Yeah. And having a tribe of people who are recognizing where you're spiraling to say, come on, girl, we gotcha. I love you. I'm holding you. If you're going to cry, cry. And then we're going to move from this space. And here are the tools. And they work. And that's what's beautiful about it. And I think that that's why it's so important for us to have our tribe who understands, because sometimes we have this pain right on the tip of our nose and we don't recognize it, but somebody else sees it. And that person can identify it for you and help move it from you, remove it, clear it, release it, which is so powerful. But that's why it's so important to be with people that do support you and love you, because they love themselves as much. So that's the cool thing.
Yeah, and I think too there's a lot of power in the pain, if that makes sense. So I think, you know, for a long time too, I went through many phases where, you know, you don't want to act like you have things going on. You don't want to act like you're in pain. I was very much, you know, always in survival mode. But one of the things that I've been working through with my therapist actually and myself is in this last year with the separation and the divorce and the move is physically almost scheduling time to be upset kind of thing. So, you know, I'm in the midst of packing up my house and 14 years of my life and yada, you know, all these things. And so I have scheduled in moments to sit and be upset about it and go through photo albums and go through stuff and do all the things. And I've allowed myself, especially with quarantine going on, to have a whole day where I sit and I'm just sad, and that's okay. And then the next day I can wake up and feel a little bit more refreshed. So I think that's a big piece of it too, being able to kind of sit with it when you're upset and not get upset with yourself for being upset.
Right. And honor yourself. Honor yourself to say, oh, that was so painful. And to love on yourself for being in pain and to say, I notice that I'm in pain. You know, oftentimes I'll say it in this phrase that you have to love that little girl or that woman or that child, wherever you were in your life. You have to love that girl then, because you may not have gotten the love or the nurturing that you needed at that moment. And it's okay to go back in time and space to say, oh my goodness, you deserve this big hug. And we can't take the pain away from you, but we can just love you and hold you where that pain is and let it be. But you're right. There is purpose in the pain. And I also believe that, you know, I shared a little bit about my story earlier, is that those things helped me so I could be the best at that time massage therapist, and this time in my life holistic life coach, to say, I get it in this way. I can't say I understand everybody's pain, but I understand pain. Because if I pretended it wasn't there and swept it under the carpet, that would be not authentic, right, to myself. And how could I heal? And then how could I lend a hand to support others to heal? So where you are in your journey and then going into your future career with all the yoga and the yoga therapy moving forward is going to make you even better of a practitioner, because healer's healing thyself. And the journey never stops, girl. Just get used to it, right? And we just evolve with it. So that's the beautiful thing about life, is find yourself supported, know your boundaries, know what to pour into your being, and just keep going. So you've had a lot of courage. What would you say to that mama who's in a space similar to yours, who's struggling? What would you tell her right now when she's on that bathroom floor moment, crying and feeling like, I don't know if I can keep going? What would you say?
Say, take your time on the bathroom floor, cry it out. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. So take the time that you need to sit with your stuff, and then know that it will get better. And, you know, choose the right people, like you said, that are your tribe. Find people that you can say, I'm having a rough day, I need support, this is what I need. And I'm a huge proponent of movement in general. So whether it is taking a walk, taking a yoga class, doing 10 minutes of stretching, some type of movement to get the body going. So yeah, take the time to sit with it if you need to. Find your support system and find some sort of movement to begin to kind of work through things both physically and mentally.
Be yourself, be your love, right? That's awesome. Tara, thank you so much for spending time with us and most importantly, sharing your authentic story, because I know it's painful, I know it's real, I know it's raw, but you're showing up. And I think by you showing up is giving inspiration and encouragement and motivation, not only to me, but also to those who are listening, that there is hope and there is life after a bad, youth or story or marriage or friendships. There is life after this, and there's something really to go for. So please share with us, where do you hang out? Where can we find you if we want to reach out to you and question you and find what you're doing?
Sure. So I am typically more active on Instagram than Facebook, but I am on both. So Soulfish Tribe is my yoga name. My tagline is Empowered Through Movement, and I am on Instagram pretty much daily, also on Facebook. And I am currently, with everything going on, I'm doing some virtual stuff. So I do offer the Buti yoga and the Primal Flow virtually on Zoom. I just started working with Right Balance Pilates, which I'm pretty excited about. So I will be teaching, not yoga, but it's called Motor, so I'll be teaching through her as well. And then, like I said, I am working with Melissa on this coaching program. So my 90-day goal, which I'm going to throw out there, so it's out there, is I am finishing up a health and wellness certification that I started a couple years ago. So it's health, wellness, stress management, and gut specialist will be my three certifications with that. I want to get that finished before I progress into the yoga therapy program too much. So with that being said, I have my final project due, so I will be rolling out a 6 to 8 week virtual program, hopefully by the end of the summer. And so I'm not 100% sure what it's going to look like, but it will be including movement, meditations, some gut work, some yoga stuff, and some of the yoga therapy all in there. So I will be sharing some of that as I go through that process.
I love it. So exciting. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and we look forward to following you on your journey through all of this awesome stuff that you're going to be doing and that you are currently doing. So thanks so much for sharing it and being you. Most importantly, thank you for showing up, being your best self. So
thank you. Thank you for having me.
yes, we look forward to seeing you in the next phase. We'll have you back again and see what you're thriving on next.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.